2 out of every 3 Americans are overweight or obese. And we know that the more body fat we have, the more obese we are, the more inflammation we have. And the more inflamed we are, the higher our risk of heart disease, cancer, stroke, osteoporosis, and on and on. What if you could beat fat? What if you could burn fat or prevent obesity even when eating a high-fat diet with a simple nutrient in your food that's probably in your kitchen right now? Would you like that? I thought so. I'm Dr. John Bartemus, and I'm putting the pieces together to help you live a life at optimal. Let's talk about how to prevent weight gain by excess fat and therefore prevent chronic disease. Now, 2 in 3 Americans are overweight or obese, and a lot of that has to do with the standard American diet, which is a high sugar, high fat diet. Not all obesity can be blamed on diet, but a large part can. And so if we assume that a high fat diet is a large contributor to the weight gain or obesity epidemic, then if we can mediate the effects of the high fat diet, then we can do a lot to prevent the effects of obesity and the downstream diseases. So what do? Well, let's look at the research. Research has done much study in mice and rat models with high fat diets, obesity, and using nutrition to prevent the obesity and the effects of the obesity. And what they found is when they feed mice or rats a high-fat diet, which we'll call HFD, they gain weight. A high-fat diet leads to increased fat mass in the rodents, and they have increased inflammation, which then leads to increased disease. So the same happens in humans. And so what we want to do is, what researchers asked was, if we feed mice or rats a high-fat diet, is there a way that we can prevent them from becoming obese on that high-fat diet? And there is. They also said, if we feed mice or rats a high-fat diet, is there a way that we can reverse the obesity that develops and the damage that develops from that? And there is. So how did they do it? They did it with a nutrient called quercetin. Quercetin, you may remember from other videos that I've put up, is very good in an allergic type presentation or in asthma or in sinuses or in histamine type reactions. Go back and check other nuggets to see those videos and me cover that topic. Quercetin is a flavonoid found in onions and apples and other botanicals. Well, it turns out it's also great in body composition and fat metabolism purposes. So, when researchers added quercetin to the diet of the rodents, the obesity was prevented. The control group that was fed a high-fat diet only with no quercetin was compared to the high-fat diet plus quercetin group, and the group that got quercetin had 23% less total body fat after 12 weeks. They had 24% lower triglycerides on lab testing, and they had 22% less visceral fat. Now, visceral fat is fat around the organs, fat around the midsection. Visceral fat is the killer. We have subcutaneous fat that is found in, say, gluteal regions or breast regions, and then we have visceral fat that's found around the midsection, around our organs. They're different. You can have high subcutaneous fat but be metabolically healthy. If you have high visceral fat, you will not be metabolically healthy, and that increases your risk of heart disease, cancers, and all kinds of bad diseases that you don't want to have. So the addition of the quercetin decreased visceral fat by 22% in the high-fat diet-fed mice compared to the high-fat diet-fed mice without quercetin. So one of my points is I don't want you to take quercetin and continue eating a terrible high-fat diet, but this is just to show you the power of the quercetin, and we're going to learn more. So how does the quercetin create these effects? Well, there's 4 main mechanisms by which it works. First is that quercetin downregulates the genetic expression in fat cells for inflammation. So fat cells are little endocrine factories. And so when white fat is producing what it produces, it's driving a pro-inflammatory environment. As we said, you gain fat, you're gaining white fat, that's inflammatory, increasing your risk of disease. So one mechanism by which quercetin works is by decreasing genetic expression in the fat cells for those pro-inflammatory cytokines or mediators. One note is this works best if you pair the quercetin with resveratrol. The second thing, or the second way that quercetin gets these awesome fat busting impacts is that it increases what's called AMPK. And AMPK is a molecule in every single cell that promotes energy and promotes what's called autophagy. Autophagy is cell recycling, or basically intracellular detoxification. It's house cleaning. This happens a lot when you're fasting. So when you're fasting or on a calorie-restricted diet, you're promoting autophagy. The autophagy house cleans inside the cell, basically walking through and finding members in the house and saying, you're not efficient, you're out of here. You're efficient, you can stay. You're not doing your job, you're out. By doing that, that is very strongly anti-aging, and it also shifts you towards a fat-burning phenotype. So promotion of AMPK is big time positive from quercetin. A third impact is that quercetin balances your microbiome. As you may know, the microbiome is the environment of bacteria. In this case, we're speaking about the gut microbiome. So all the bacteria that make up the microbial environment in your gut. You have good bacteria, probiotics, and then you have pathogens or bad guys, and you also have commensals, which could go either way depending on the environment. So one study looked at rats fed high-fat diet and looked at the induction of that high-fat diet. That high-fat diet induced a poor microbiome, or it swung the balance between good bacteria and bad bacteria towards bad bugs. So with less good bugs and more bad bugs, these mice were more prone to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And so that's not something we want. A non-alcoholic fatty liver disease can become cirrhosis or liver cancer. So in a human environment, high-fat diet, insulin resistance, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, because of the imbalanced microbiome from the high-fat diet, and you're off to the races. Well, in the study, giving quercetin blocked or helped recover the microbiome, so rebalanced or restored the good levels of probiotics in the microbiome, which reversed the high-fat diet-induced non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So a healthy liver requires a healthy gut microbiome, which does best if it's not on a high-fat diet, or if you're eating a high-fat diet, you're taking quercetin with it. Lastly, and big time here, quercetin has been shown to convert white fat to brown fat. What does that mean? Well, as I said a moment ago, white fat is the highly pro-inflammatory fat. So the more white fat you have, the more pro-inflammatory molecules you're secreting, the more inflamed you are, the higher your risk of disease. Well, brown fat is a furnace. Brown fat burns fat. Brown fat is a lean phenotype. White fat tilts you towards an overweight or obese presentation. Brown fat tilts you towards a lean presentation, a fat-burning presentation, an energy expenditure presentation. So quercetin has been shown to shift white fat into brown fat in humans, not just in rodents, but in humans. So this is a way, if you're someone with a high amount of white fat, you want to do all the lifestyle recommendations that are at play to change your body composition. But one thing you could do to augment those things is take quercetin with the intention of promoting switching of white fat to brown fat and speeding your conversion to that lean phenotype. So I hope you see today that with your diet and with specific supplementation, you can achieve your goals of weight loss, disease prevention, fat burning faster with a little bit of knowledge and understanding. So what you want to do is work with your functional medicine practitioner to dig into specifics in terms of how should you dose it, when should you dose it, etc. We're not going to dive into that today, but what I wanted to do is arm you with this information that in the research there is a lot of data supporting quercetin for use in fat burning, fat prevention, and disease prevention.